The next part of the presentation is an interview that we did with Guy Opperman. He is the MP for Hexham. He's a Conservative MP who is responsible for pensions. But it just shows as well that welfare advice are being more recognised in the local area. I mean, obviously we had to get in with Guy in the first place, and Matthew, who works for us, who's from Hexham originally. He knew Guy from something he's done with him previously, and that's what set up the interview. So, without further ado, here's the interview with Guy. Good afternoon, Guy. Thanks for taking the time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule you have as Hexham MP to speak with us today. Your official title is Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Pensions and Financial Inclusion. Quite a mouthful there. Please could you therefore start just by explaining what your role is in a bit more detail for our clients to understand what it is exactly that you do.
Sure. So my name is Guy Opperman. I'm the MP for Hexham. And in 2016 and 17, I was badgering the then Prime Minister, originally David Cameron, but then Theresa May, and saying, what you really need is a Minister for Financial Inclusion, and you really need to shake up pensions, particularly private pensions. So I was a little surprised in 2017 when, having been a whip for 2 and a bit years, the PM rang me up and said, I'd like to be Minister of Pensions. And I said, that's great. And she said, and I'm going to add on financial inclusion as well as part of that. And so I'm the first Minister for Pensions and Financial Inclusion. It is a great honour and a privilege. Pensions ministers either come in the sort of 9 to 12 month variety or the you've got the job for 5 years variety. And so I've now been doing it for 3.5 years. It is a job I pitched to do. It's a really, really interesting job.
What are the main takeaways from the Pension Schemes Act, and what will our clients notice about their pensions in the future?
It can be summed up in a phrase. It will make your pensions safer, better and greener. So it'll make it safer in 2 ways. It stops scams, so particularly transfer scams, which is what you guys will be conscious of. It'll also stop the Philip Greens of this world exploiting pensions in an adverse way, and we want to stop the behaviour that happened in the past. It'll make them better in a whole host of ways, but the easiest description is dashboard.
That sounds very interesting there, Guy. The idea of safer, better, greener pensions is certainly something that we would support. You mentioned there about the pension scams. We often sort of see the TV advert of a fake financial advisor on a jet ski who scammed this poor client out of their funds, and we think, what can we do to try and sort of push back against that? What do you think can happen in this area?
So I think there is already some support, but I think the work of the Pension Scams Industry Group, which is called PSIG, has been absolutely game-changing. And there is already organisations like Action Fraud. There's already organisations like the City of London Police who are monitoring and enforcing that. But it also requires the online companies, the likes of Google, to look at how it is they are allowing cloned websites to be set up, how it is they're allowing fake companies to be set up. The evidence given to the House of Commons Work and Pension Select Committee was overwhelming that companies like Aviva were really struggling because people were setting up a fake Aviva and encouraging people to transfer money to that organisation, and all on places like Google and things like that. So the companies have got to do more who receive such information. We've got to do more in terms of government, and I think the transfer laws that we've brought in will make a massive difference because that'll stop the transfers to where there are red flags. And more particularly, we then have got to be in a position that the pension industry has got to work collectively. Because if you don't work collectively, in my view, they will struggle. Most of us now have a banking app. Lots of us have a savings app. None of us have a pensions app. And we want to have a pensions app on a mobile phone so that you can then access all of your savings information on a long-term basis. And those 3 things ultimately will be interchangeable. And heading towards the next 2 to 3 years, the dashboard will be a massive issue and a massive thing. Very big news for IFAs as well, because you'll have a designated ability to manage that.
Okay, can you explain therefore how the legislation will make pensions greener?
There's no question that the power of pensions and to make your money matter in terms of its investment power is enormous. and we are transforming by the sections that we have and what's called the TCFD regulations that follow. That financial disclosure will be done of your climate-related investments, and you as an IFA and your customers will need to know and will be provided with that information exactly how it is that your money is being invested, but also how it's being invested vis-a-vis climate change, and it builds upon the ESG reforms that we've already brought in a couple of years ago.
So I think following this, we will go and explain to our clients a little bit more in detail like what the pensions dashboard is, but can you just explain right now what is happening with the pensions dashboard?
There's no question that the power of pensions and to make your money matter in terms of its investment power is enormous, and we are transforming by the sections that we have and what's called the TCFD regulations that follow. That financial disclosure will be done of your climate-related investments, and you as an IFA and your customers will need to know and will be provided with that information exactly how it is that your money is being invested, but also how it's being invested vis-a-vis climate change, and it builds upon the ESG reforms that we've already brought in a couple of years ago.
Pensions are certainly a complex area. What are your aspirations to modernise pensions, and how will you go about achieving this?
Yeah, no question. I think, listen, if I can bring the information on your pension to your iPhone, your iPad, your home computer, just as traditionally, so Chris and I are old enough, you aren't old enough, Matthew, to have gone to a bank and met our bank manager. You know, we actually physically would go to the building and have a conversation with a man who was a bank manager. Nobody does that now. Nobody does that now. But we all now have interactions with our bank on a daily basis because we have a banking app. And a banking app allows you to be genuinely interacting with your bank on a regular basis. A savings app is exactly the same thing. At the moment, very, very, very few people interact with their pension. And the reason is it is a very inaccessible savings device, which is not that easy to understand. So we are bringing it into the digital age. And if we do that, I think it will be transformational.
It's that time of year where we're a month away, or just a few weeks, away from the next budget. We will get clients, so we have had clients who are asking us questions: will the tax-free cash be abolished? Will the lifetime allowance be reduced on pensions? I know it's a difficult one for you, but is there anything that you can elaborate and tell us on that?
The answer is always the same. I'm sure you, like me, will listen to the Chancellor on, I think it's Wednesday, March the 4th, or is it the 6th, when he's giving his budget. It's all a matter for the Chancellor, and tax and the like is a matter for him.
Right, well, the budget was actually on the 3rd of March. I'm sure everyone is aware of that. And those issues that we raised about tax-free cash and such like, there was no changes on there, so nothing really major came out from the budget regarding pensions and investments and such like. Hopefully some of the things that Guy mentioned there will become normal. People who are working right now will be able to have a pensions dashboard where they'll constantly be able to see what they're saving in retirement. Obviously, lots of our clients who've retired now and become clients might have had one major job during their life. Some people might have worked 25, 30 years in one role. Someone who's in their 30s now might have 10 jobs by the time they come to retire, and keeping track of those pensions is what the pension dashboard is about. So I'll be certainly interested to see if that comes off. But I'm a little bit sceptical when it comes to governments bringing out IT products, as it were, that are going to revolutionise things. They seem to take a little bit longer than expected. And that pensions dashboard was first mentioned, I think, about 2012. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But the main positive thing to take from that was obviously wealth of advice, being able to speak with the pensions minister there. And he did promise at the end of the interview that he'll come down to our office when lockdowns and such like is over and have a look at some of the things that we get involved with. Because one of the things that we sometimes get frustrated with when you see the FCA make various rule changes, updates, they don't actually understand how it will impact the end user or how it will impact the advisor firm. So if we can have discussions with an MP who's related to pensions, then that would be great.